My name is Valerie Brooks. I was 50 years old when my husband of 27 years looked me in the eyes, or rather, avoided my eyes and told me we had outgrown each other. His name is Nathan Brooks. He worked in finance, a senior accountant at a mid-sized firm in Atlanta. We built a life together, raised a son, paid off debts, endured layoffs and surgeries and funerals. But none of that mattered when he decided I was no longer exciting enough. He said I had changed, that I was too quiet, too predictable. And just like that, he handed me divorce papers on a rainy Tuesday and told me he was moving out. What he didn't say was that he wasn't moving into a hotel or a temporary apartment. He was moving in with her Sierra Green, a woman he once introduced to me as a junior colleague from marketing. She was 34, the same age as our son, Dylan. 3 weeks after the divorce papers, he was sleeping in my bed, sipping wine in my kitchen, and posing for photos in front of the fireplace I had chosen tile by tile. They thought I'd walk away quietly, that I'd cry for a while and fade into the background. What they forgot was that the house was never just his. My name was still on the deed. And I wasn't going to disappear. I didn't scream. I didn't argue. But I started moving. Quietly, carefully. And it began with a single phone call. I remember sitting at the kitchen table, the same one where I used to pack Nathan's lunch and help Dylan with his homework, when he told me the marriage was over. He couldn't even meet my gaze, just stared at his coffee like it held the answer to his guilt. I wasn't angry at first. I was stunned. I kept thinking, how does someone throw away nearly 3 decades like that? I had given up a major promotion at the bank when Dylan was born because Nathan's work hours were unpredictable. Someone had to be home. That someone was me. I managed the household. I kept our finances balanced, cooked every meal, folded laundry, and for 2 full years, I took care of Nathan's ailing mother in our guest room without a single complaint. I didn't want much, just mutual respect and loyalty. But apparently loyalty had an expiration date. Days passed, weeks, and then one morning I received a letter in the mail, not from Nathan. From her. It was printed on pale pink stationery, the kind you might use for a baby shower. It read, "Dear Valerie, please arrange a time to collect your remaining belongings. Nathan and I are settling in, and we prefer to begin this new chapter without disruptions. Mornings are best. Sincerely, Sierra Green." I sat there holding the letter, the teacup in my hand slowly going cold. My fingers trembled not from sadness but from something deeper. Rage? She called me a disruption. In the very house I helped buy, in the home I worked for, paid into, repaired, cleaned, and protected. She moved in like she owned the place. But I was about to remind them both that ownership comes with paperwork. And my name was still right there on the mortgage, untouched. They thought I was going to beg. They were wrong. I was about to teach them the cost of forgetting who helped build the life they were now living. The moment I read that letter, I knew I needed more than just emotional closure. I needed legal clarity. So I called Maya. She's been my best friend since college and a family attorney for over 20 years. She's the kind of woman who speaks softly but never wastes a word. When I explained everything, she didn't gasp or rant. She went quiet. Then she asked, "Is your name still on the deed?" I said, "Yes." Nathan never refinanced, said it was too much of a hassle. Maya paused. "Did he ever buy you out of your share of the property?" "No," I said. "Then legally," she said slowly, "you still own half the house." I blinked. "What does that mean?" "It means you can file a partition action, force a sale, or demand that he and Sierra buy you out at fair market value. Either way, they have no legal right to keep you out." I sat there in silence, looking out at the dogwood tree, blooming in my front yard. The petals were starting to fall, just like all the illusions I used to hold about Nathan. "Let's do it," I said. 2 days later, Nathan called me. His voice was sharp, coated in false concern. "Val, did you really hire a lawyer?" "Yes." "Why? Why make this harder than it has to be?" I kept my tone calm. "You already made it hard. I'm just following the path you laid out." He tried to guilt me, said I was bitter, that Sierra didn't feel comfortable with me hanging around in their new life. I didn't raise my voice. I simply said, "Then maybe she shouldn't be living in a house that still has my name on the title." He hung up. Sierra emailed me again later that week. This time the tone wasn't fake sweet, it was condescending. She said I was humiliating myself, that I needed to let go, that Nathan deserved a fresh start, and I was clinging to a dead marriage. I didn't respond. Instead, I called Maya and said, let's turn up the heat. We filed the partition paperwork that same week. Everything was clean, airtight, and legally sound. This wasn't revenge, this was restoration. I wasn't making noise, I was making moves. And they never saw it coming. Nathan thought I was weak. Sierra thought I was irrelevant. But I was neither. I was a co-owner. I was patient. And I was done being quiet. The email Sierra sent told me to schedule a time, but she forgot one detail: Nathan never changed the locks. So I didn't schedule anything. I simply showed up. It was a sunny Friday morning when I pulled into the driveway. The same driveway where I once taught Dylan how to ride a bike. Now a white BM sat parked in my spot, hers of course. I sat there for a moment, gathering myself. I wasn't there to cause a scene. I wasn't there to shout or cry. I was there to collect the last of my things. With the same key Nathan gave me 20 years ago. The door clicked open like it always had. I stepped inside and paused. It looked familiar, but it wasn't home anymore. The couch was the same, but everything else had changed. The walls were painted a sterile beige, like a waiting room. The family photos I once hung were gone, replaced with framed quotes, things like "good vibes only in manifest happiness." It looked like a Pinterest board with no soul. I walked into the kitchen. She had rearranged everything. My spice rack was gone. The mason jar where I used to keep my tea bags now held gluten-free granola bars and organic lollipops. I felt a fire rising, not grief, not nostalgia, just heat. And then I heard her. Sierra came down the stairs in one of Nathan's old t-shirts. She froze when she saw me. "What are you doing here?" she asked. "I came to get my things," I said, holding up the printout of her own email. "You were supposed to schedule a time," she snapped. "We have rules, boundaries." I walked past her, slow and steady. "Well, sweetheart, as long as my name's still on this house, I'll come and go as I please." Her cheeks turned red. "Nathan will hear about this." "Good," I said. "He should have been the one to greet me." I packed in silence. A few books, a photo of Dylan as a baby, a necklace from my mother. I wasn't taking much. Not because I didn't have the right, but because I didn't need anything from that house. I had already decided I would never live there again. Not because I couldn't, but because I wouldn't give them the satisfaction. Just a few days after my quiet visit, Maya called. "The court accepted the partition action," she said. "They'll be officially notified tomorrow." "Do I have to deliver it?" I asked. "No," she said with a smile in her voice. "Let the system slap them." And it did. Nathan called me 4 times the next day. I didn't pick up. His voicemail was frantic. "Valerie, what are you doing? This is insane. You're forcing us to sell the house." Yes, I was. After all he'd done, he still believed the house was his. He thought I would just walk away because that's what I had always done, kept the peace, stayed quiet. Not this time. He called again the day after. I finally answered. "Val, we need to talk." "So talk," I said calmly. "Why are you doing this?" "You mean, why am I forcing a sale of a house I still legally own?" He went silent. "You know we can't afford to buy you out right now." "Then maybe," I said slowly. "You should have thought of that before you moved her in." His tone shifted, softer, like the Nathan I used to know. "You don't need this kind of stress," he said. "No," I agreed. "I don't. But you brought it on yourself." Then I hung up. 2 days later, Sierra called me, not texted, called. Her voice was shaky. "You're ruining us," she said between sniffs. "You're humiliating us." "Please, Valerie, be a woman about this." I paused for a moment. "Being a woman," I said, "means knowing your worth, and I'm done shrinking for either of you." Then I blocked her number. After that, I said nothing. I let Maya do the talking. Let the paperwork do the cutting. They tried to fight it, hired a lawyer, claimed it wasn't fair, that it was emotionally distressing. The judge didn't care. He looked at the deed, looked at the mortgage, and said the words I had waited months to hear. Miss Brooks remains a legal co-owner. Unless a private buyout is reached, the property must be sold. Maya glanced at me in court and smiled. I didn't smile back, not yet. Because they still had keys, they still had hot showers and a functioning kitchen. But now they also had a deadline. 60 days. 60 days to either pay me or pack up and leave. And I already knew they couldn't do either. Sierra wasn't working. Nathan's income hadn't changed. Now they had legal fees on top of their mortgage. A week later, I drove past the house. A homemade for sale by owner sign was staked in the lawn. They were trying to handle it without an agent, trying to avoid commission fees and rush the sale. But the market wasn't kind that month. And karma doesn't care how desperate you are. I went home, sat at my new kitchen table, a smaller, humbler one but mine, and I lit a candle, not for them. For me. Because this wasn't about destruction. It was about restoration. And they were just beginning to understand what it felt like to be erased from something they once thought was theirs. By week 5, a serious offer came in, full asking price, no contingencies. The buyers were a young couple from North Carolina, expecting their first child. They loved the garden, the open layout, the quiet street. Maya called me first. They want to close in 2 weeks. I said, perfect. That same day, Nathan texted me. We need to talk about staging. I didn't respond. Then came a second message. Please don't remove everything. Sierra's feeling really exposed right now. I nearly laughed. She hadn't felt exposed when she wore my husband's shirt and called me pathetic in my own kitchen. But I took a breath, stayed silent, and forwarded it to Maya. She handled everything. I didn't step foot in that house again. That was by design. Let them feel the walls closing in. Let them walk through the bedroom, where I once cried myself to sleep and wonder what else they had underestimated. I heard from Dylan that tensions were boiling. Nathan had started sleeping on the couch. Sierra was snapping at everything. She called the agent in tears, asking if they could delay showings. The agent reminded her, this was a court-ordered sale, not a favor. The house had to be spotless, available for strangers to tour and judge every inch. It was poetic. They had turned my life into something disposable. Now they were living on borrowed time. A week before closing, Nathan showed up at my new place, a quiet 2-bedroom unit with a garden. He knocked like he still had a right. I opened the door but didn't invite him in. He looked smaller, not thinner, just collapsed, like his pride had lost its spine. I came to ask you something, he said. I crossed my arms. Go ahead. Can you help us with the deposit on our new place? We're short. I blinked. Excuse me? He raised both hands like he knew how ridiculous it sounded. We just didn't think you'd go this far. You thought I'd stay quiet, I said for him. He nodded slowly. You've never been the type to retaliate. I'm not retaliating, I said. I'm restoring. There's a difference. He looked down at the porch floor. Sierra's staying with her sister now. I'm in a hotel near River Park. I didn't end this, I reminded him. You did. You moved her into my home before the ink on our divorce even dried. He looked like he wanted to argue, but the words didn't come. You didn't just replace me, I said. You erased me, so I did the same. Then I closed the door. Gently. The house sold. I walked away with over $370,000 after fees and taxes. Not a fortune, but enough to start over without asking anyone's permission. I didn't splurge. I didn't book a vacation or buy a convertible. I sat down with Maya and a financial advisor, a sharp woman named Patrice with natural curls and pearl earrings, who said one thing that stuck with me. Let's make sure this money outlives the betrayal. That's exactly what I wanted. I invested half. With the rest, I bought a condo, modest, modern, and entirely in my name. No co-signers. No joint accounts. No toothbrush beside mine in the bathroom. Just me. Then I disappeared, not dramatically, not bitterly, quietly. I deactivated social media, stopped going to the same church, didn't answer the checking-in messages from people who once pitied me but now seemed nosy. I moved 2 states away to a small town near Santa Fe, New Mexico. Here I'm not Greg's ex-wife. I'm Miss Brooks, the woman who bakes banana bread for the neighbors, volunteers at the animal shelter, and hums old gospel songs on her porch. No one here knows what I've been through. And I like it that way. A month after the sale closed, I donated $50,000 anonymously to a local women's legal fund. No plaque, no announcement. Just a note, for the women who don't yet know they're allowed to fight back. Later, I read in the fund's newsletter that my donation helped 3 women leave abusive marriages. 2 of them filed lawsuits that changed the course of their lives. That's legacy.
Not just surviving, but building something better in the wreckage. Sometimes I sit in my little kitchen, sunlight pouring in through the window, and I write it all down. Not for them. For me. To remind myself that I walked through fire and came out clean. Greg didn't just lose a wife. He lost access to my loyalty. Sierra didn't just lose a house. She lost the illusion that you can build happiness on someone else's ashes and not get burned. They thought I was weak because I was quiet. They thought I wouldn't fight because I didn't shout. But they misunderstood me entirely. Silence isn't surrender. Sometimes it's strategy. Sometimes it's the beginning of war. Greg and Sierra thought I would vanish. Instead, I stood still and watched everything they built on top of me collapse under its own weight. Not because I screamed, but because I signed. They packed boxes and disappeared from a life they stole. And I didn't even raise my voice. That's not revenge. That's recovery. Now, I sip tea from a mug Maya gave me. It says unbothered and paid. And every time I lift it to my lips, I smile. Because I didn't just take back my house. I took back my voice. I took back my name. And I left behind the version of me who thought being quiet meant being powerless. To every woman who's been erased, underestimated, or told she should disappear, don't. Your silence can be your power. Use it. And when the time is right, sign the papers, walk away, and let your peace speak louder than any scream. Like, share, and comment below if this story stayed with you. You're not alone. And it's never too late to begin again.